Welcome back, everyone, to the Cupp of Sunshine series. I am really excited about the episode today. We are doing an episode with a very good friend, a mentor of mine, and an old boss, Joe Morgan. Joe is currently the founder and CEO of SIY, which is an organization that focuses on mid-market and transformations that they're dealing with. And he's just an exceptional human being. We had lots of stuff to talk about, but this segment you're going to see here is really focused on people-centric leadership. And I will say it's one of the things that I really learned from Joe as I was embarking upon my leadership career. So I hope you like it as much as I did. Take a look.
The first guy that probably influenced me was my father-in-law in business, because my mom and dad were school teachers, so I didn't know anything about business. I knew a lot about people, but I didn't know anything about business. So I walked into his office one day. I'd never been in a corporate facility in my life. And I noticed like everybody smiled when they saw him. I'm like, what the hell? Like, that's not supposed to happen. I mean, you read all these books and it's supposed to be stiff and hierarchy. And they loved him. They really loved him. So I remember asking him why. And he said, well, I just got to know them. And it was like, it's pretty simple. Mm-hmm. So that was actually the start of my understanding that it's not that complicated. And I was actually pretty good at that.
Part of me thinks you have this way of sort of identifying people that you believe have something in them, like whether it's a capability, a desire, something. Like it's like you have this ability to focus in and say, like, I know who they are. And then you tend to sort of engage and actually, like you said, like you learn, you talk to them, you spend time with them. So what is it that you look for when you're thinking about those types of people that you feel like you might connect with?
You know, some people are conformists, some people are pushing the edges, but it doesn't matter which one you are. Inside, there's some treasure. And I always like to go for walks with people. I like to observe people and see how they behave when no one else is watching. I study and then I act, you know, it's kind of typical. And I don't like a lot of control, so that's probably a personality problem. But this guy shows up in my office and he's a manager and it's annoying as hell. Like, why are you here? I mean, I'm really busy right now. And he was my boss. So I, of course, had to pay attention. I later found that the management team had gone to a session on the fact that the employees didn't feel as engaged. So they were told, you really ought to go visit people in their space and manage by walking around, which I think is stupid because it's just disruptive. So I manage by walking. So I go say, hey, let's go for a walk. And then that's how I learn. That's how I figure out what people are really interested in, because it comes down to passion. I also think that if you say you want to have a dialogue, like I don't interview people generally. I like to have a dialogue. Now I'm going to cover everything, but it's going to happen through a dialogue. So we may go down a few roads here and there, and we'll eventually cover everything and come back to it.
Is it always about something positive, or do you also see things that perhaps you're like, I know that person's got something more, but I don't like what I'm seeing? Like, do you go both ways, or do you focus more on ones that you feel like you can really develop something more into? The rock's already kind of polished a little bit, or you'll go anyway?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely obvious when you get to know me a little bit that I'm definitely on the positive side of life more than I am on the other side. But I also realize that, you know, there's some people, because I look at like people broadly in two cups. There's Tiggers and then there's Eeyores. But that doesn't really mean that an Eeyore can't be a really good person and a contributor and all that stuff. It just means that their natural tendency is not to be super positive about stuff. So I do that, but I don't do it in a confrontational way.
Yep.
Probably a bit more subtle and experiential as to how I bring that, unless someone crosses a line.
By the way, I just have to say that the Tigger and Eeyore resonates because I don't know if you remember this, but I vividly remember when we were once in a boardroom meeting and there was a couple of us presenting, and I vividly remember you talking about Tigger and Eeyore after that experience.
I became CIO of the company we worked for. And I wasn't super excited about being CIO because I was like, I don't know that much about it. And I found when I got into it that I was surrounded by a lot of Eeyore personalities. And that's because they weren't respected like they should have been. And so sometimes people are a result of their circumstance. And if you can just change the circumstance a little bit and help them derive the value that they really deserve, it's amazing how much the smiles come back. I've been fortunate to work in a lot of different companies, and as I've done that, I've learned that, people use culture. That's a big word.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it has many, many dimensions. I kind of break that down to terminology. So one of the first things I like to do is, what are the words of the company? What's the terminology of the organization? So that I can talk in those same terms. I think it's having the conversation within the framework of your words and your terminology. But I also think the first point always is, it has to start with casual, who are you?
Yeah.
Check in where you are. Because one of the things that I've discovered, and you and I talked about this in selling, you can prepare for a big enterprise sales deal, and then the meeting just before the meeting you're in, that the customer's in, dictates what happens.
Yep.
And so if you're not clear on what they just experienced, you're not going to be able to accomplish what you set out to do. So I think that's a lot of it, just making it personal.
I really love Joe's approach about taking a walk, having a dialogue. And what that all says to me is, it's about getting to know the person. That if you really want to be an effective leader, it's about who that person really is, how they operate in the environment that they operate in, and how you can most effectively help them. And to me, the best part about that leadership message is really understanding a person will help them do better in their role, in their life, and their job, which of course in turn as a leader will help you as well. So I hope you'd enjoyed it. I hope you took something away from it that's helpful to you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.